My ex-wife and I met in college, and I was immediately attracted to her free-spirited nature and sense of adventure because I was very similar at the time. Long story short, we were together for a total of 9 years and married for 7 of those. We ended up having 2 kids during that time, a son, 9 male, and a daughter, 7 female. It's been about 4 years since the divorce was finalized. Honestly, we had a pretty good marriage. However, we both realized as we got older that our visions of how we saw our daily lives wasn't going to mesh. She is just as she always was, attending music festivals, stopping by art shows, or trying some new hobby. I basically became what many might consider the boring one, who kind of just wanted to have nights in, cooking or watching movies, doing projects for the house, or reading books with our kids. Neither of us faults the other for our marriage not working out. As a result, we are on great terms with one another. This has been wonderful for co-parenting. However, there is an issue that has recently popped up that I just don't know how to feel about. My ex is supposed to get married in March to a guy she has been dating for a few years. I'm happy for her. Her marriage isn't the issue. My issue is with their last names. Weird, I know. Please, let me explain. When we got married, we went the traditional route most do, where she took my last name. This time around, they, my ex and her fiancé, decided that he would like to take her last name because he doesn't like his for some reason. So what's the problem? She never went back to her maiden name after the divorce. The guy wants to take my last name as his own. I know it's kind of silly because anyone can legally change their name to pretty much whatever they want. However, the situation just rubs me the wrong way. I understand that my last name became her last name, also from a legal standpoint. But the name is my family surname that she chose to share. It may be worth noting that I did not push her to take my last name in any way. This guy is not part of my family. Let me be clear that I actually really like her fiancé. He is a good guy who I have no issues with being around my kids, and who I even just like on a personal level, from when we have hung out at activities that revolved around the kids. He will be a great stepdad or even a father, if they have a kid of their own. But that doesn't change the fact that he isn't part of my family. Additionally, and maybe this sounds petty, but I wouldn't want anyone to assume he is my children's father based on the fact that him and my kids all have the same last name, which is not a common last name. I have talked twice with my ex about this, and each time she has dismissed my feelings regarding it. The first time she basically maintained that it was just a name, but didn't really have a response when I asked why they didn't use her maiden name, or just choose a last name they both liked or agreed on, if the name didn't matter. The second time, she told me that he really likes my last name and doesn't care for his own. This is when I found out why they were going this route. This issue has been running through my mind more and more as their wedding date, current state of the world permitting, approaches. I don't know if I should address this with him also, since we are on friendly terms. Talk this over with my ex more, or just let it be and accept it. I don't want this to in any way affect my relationship with my ex, as I feel that us having an issue would be bad for co-parenting reasons. Does anyone have advice on how I should handle this? Is it even reasonable, even if it isn't entirely logical, for someone in my position to feel the way I do? I'm kind of at a loss as to what to do at the moment. Any input would be appreciated. Edit. It has come up a lot that my ex wants to keep the same last name as the kids. This is not the case. She assumed she would be taking his last name and was fine with that. The fiancé is the one that said he doesn't want her to change her name. He wants her to keep it so that they can have my last name. Edit 2. It also seems worth noting, as it has come up several times, that I did not ask my ex to take my last name or expect it. I was fine with her keeping her own and us just hyphenating the kid's name. She was the one who chose to take my last name because that was what she wanted for herself. I'd have less of an issue with this if I had insisted she take my last name and this same situation arose. Yes, it is weird. Also, it's gonna make it look like your children are his children. They look like a family unit and you are an uncle. Besides getting manipulative, there's basically not much you can do. This is quite weird. It's possible he doesn't like his name. The fact that he wants to take his wife's ex-husband's name is fishy. It might be he wants to appear more like a family. Yet, with that said, when your ex signs them up for school, it will come up. Him and their last name as her husband will be seen as their father. Some might even put him down without a second thought though. This can be tricky for the kids later should it be used as a way to push you out. It could be a good reason. This seems manipulative and low-key, a way to duck with you. That's just me. I would have a discussion with the kids before he, her does. Doing nothing is more than okay because it would only cause friction. Yet, don't let them run the narrative. I would also mandate, yes, mandate, that he is never listed on their paperwork as the father, guardian, family, whatever. Just make sure your name is listed before his as their parent on everything. This can get tricky later. Sit down and talk it out. My female 39, boyfriend Nell, male 37, has let me down so badly that I'm numb. He has destroyed my trust at soul level. I hate being led on and used. We met 4 years ago and hit it off. It was a great change for me at first. I've had trouble finding a true friend within my relationships. Nell was awesome at listening. We share the same food tastes. We love the same cultural stuff. We read a lot. I thought he was sincere, but now it's become clear that he's been mimicking. He asked me to move in with him, but I was resistant for months. I'm really focusing on my career and work with lots of male colleagues, which makes him very uncomfortable. This leads to unpleasantness on his side, saying hurtful things to make me jealous, also talking crap about my male coworkers. He turned around and changed his attitude after I fully expressed how he was making me feel. We had an intense negotiation before I moved in. I have a good job. I never required him to make tons of money, but after 3 months of living together, I began to notice that he lied about his education. He said he has an MBA, but is unfamiliar with very simple concepts. For background, I've lived with him for an entire year. Xmas 2020 was fantastic. I'd never had such a lovely and romantic holiday. This makes me so mad because it was a charade. He never loved me. All he did was offer what I needed to hear. I hate him. He began to get comfortable. I don't need a big CEO or an Elon Musk wannabe as a boyfriend, but I need to know that my guy is a doer. He would sit in front of his gaming console and let his so-called career goals slip away. Everything offended him. He turned down an assistant job because he's a leader, not a follower. He wouldn't even hear it when I suggested he worked his way up. I moved to this town under false information. He told me he was popular and respected. I believed him because it's a small town, so that happens in small communities. That didn't really matter, except that his townspeople don't seem to think too highly of him. So now it matters because he lied. I've seen people giving him cynical looks. I got scoffed at for accidentally repeating one of his presumed lies. I have come to resent him very deeply. He loves pranks, and it easily gets out of hand. I'm so disgusted to say this, but he engagement pranked me last fall. He knelt and handed me a box. I cried, and although my mind was racing, I didn't know if it would be the right decision. I cannot deny that I was happy. The box had a pair of earrings. I was very embarrassed, but tried to cool down and avoid ridicule. He was very amused and asked me what I was expecting. We went to visit his friend Paul, disabled, important to the story, and his wife. The wife's face changed when they saw us show up at their pre-New Year's Eve dinner party. She and Nell have a very tense relationship. She had a hostile reaction when Nell started talking business with Paul, who's now back home after an extended stay in the hospital. The wife said she was fed up. Paul tried to calm her down, but she got even angrier and yelled at her husband because the dinner party was supposed to be to celebrate he was out of the hospital, not to attract people who always need something. I just wanted to leave. She disappeared for a while, but then came back and started passing her phone around so that everyone got a peek at Nell's ex, Facebook profile, wedding pictures. She was mean, not judging her, she surely has her own reasons, and went all out about how wealthy, successful, feared, and respected Nell's ex's new husband is. These are things that Nell yearns for. He was embarrassed, and I could understand. But so many things came out that I lost all respect for him. He painted his ex as the needy crazy who stalked him and tried to argue his way into gaining composure. People were laughing. He got out of control and embarrassed me by engaging in a huge confrontation with Paul's wife. He wasn't making any sense, but it was clear to me that he was hurt because his ex moved on. I had to drive us back while he was having a tantrum inside the car, vowed revenge and all types of BS, claimed he will destroy the guy, groom, and said he will make her crawl back. It was like I wasn't there. Obviously, the wedding took him by surprise. He's been drinking, crying, and self-pitying for weeks. Yesterday was the last straw. I tried to talk to him and he said he has no joy in this life and that all the good ones are taken. I won't be a caregiver for someone who despises me and himself. I'm not interested in staying. I would be reduced to being a provider. Duck him. He passed out drunk, despite alcohol altering his blood pressure. I spent last night in a hotel and didn't even bother to announce that I was moving out. I'm getting hate from his family. They are acting like I'm entitled for being irritated. I'm fed up with so many things. I made the mistake of looking into his ex's old pictures and found that the hairstyle he insisted that I wear is very similar to hers. We've been going to restaurants and watching series that are either a part of her culture or her personal preference. I didn't know this. I came to build a life with him, and I ended up digging a crap hole. Thankfully, we don't have kids or joint finances or anything. I'll just remove myself from this crap show, and hopefully, his misery will drive him into more ridicule. His mother called me insensitive and selfish after I said he is nothing but a moocher and a Mr. Nobody, and good on his ex for tossing him. I'm gonna change my number. I blocked everyone, but every time I get a call from an unknown number, I get really tense. I need to figure out a place to live, probably 2 cities away where I used to live, and closer to my employer, and will have to start over in terms of my personal life. Can somebody offer any advice or words of wisdom? Anytime family members go after the person leaving, it's because they know telling their actual relation to just move on, that there's other fish in the sea, would be a lie. They know he's crap. They know someone else falling for his crap before he gets his great guy mask back in place will be impossible. Seems easier to try to shame you into staying, so they don't have to put up with him anymore either. Whole dang clan is toxic. Good for you for getting out. Hello. So here's the deal. During one of the many natural fire outbreaks this fall, my family, including my siblings, their spouses, and my parents were all evacuated. Beforehand, my dad asked me to prep the houses. He owns all my siblings' homes as well, to set up a fire perimeter. For background, I had been crashing with my sibling and my sister-in-law for a few months after a breakup, paying a third of the rent and utilities, which seemed to work well for everyone in this expensive county. Per the advice of firefighter friends and also CAL FIRE, I tore out any dead trees near the house, raked the leaves, and pushed all the flammable furniture in the house away from the windows. It was scary. We could see the fire in the near distance, and I wanted to make sure our collective houses were as safe as possible. Flash forward to when we were allowed to return a week later. My sister-in-law freaked out at how I had rearranged the furniture and plants. She stormed up to me when I pulled up in the driveway and demanded to know who gave me the right to move the couches, pictures, and whatnot. She didn't accept any of my explanations, and I did end up apologizing for not communicating my plans better, although I had told her. But, and I didn't say this, I didn't think I had done anything really wrong aside from that. 5 minutes later, when I started to run a borrowed HEPA vacuum over the smoky furniture in the house, she snapped that she had already dusted. I replied that the dust was probably pretty toxic and needed more attention than usual. She stormed out of the house, slamming the door and complaining to anyone who would listen. I've since moved out, although I still have things at their house, and I did pay for November's rent. The problem is, my sister-in-law is still not talking to me. I was set to apologize again, until I found out from another sibling that she's been saying pretty nasty things about me, about how I'm a loser with no plans in life, that I'm spoiled, etc. To placate family, who were worried about losing contact with my sibling, I agreed to write my sister-in-law an email, offering to talk about our feelings and experiences and bury the hatchet. She refuses to even respond to the email until she gets another real apology. I'm over it at this point. I'm not saying I didn't do anything wrong, but I'm tired of having to debase myself to placate difficult people. What would you do? What could I do differently? If I'm in the wrong, please give me your opinion. Your dad owns the homes. He asked you to help protect them. She has no right to talk here, and you should have too much self-respect to apologize, especially when you already have. She doesn't get to dictate your apology. Get your dad in on this and have him tell her he told you to do it. If she doesn't like it, then she doesn't have to live in his house. My God, I would not even be able to resist being a smart aleck to her. I'm sorry I tore out dead plants and rearranged things to help prevent a fire. I'm sorry I decided to contribute to your half-hearted cleaning of potentially toxic ash. I'm sorry you're such a control freak and believe you're somehow a victim of a non-existent crime. Next time, I'll just let it all burn. Don't contact me ever again, and don't expect an honest apology, because you certainly don't deserve it. This sounds infuriating. She is being super ungrateful. I would get all of your crap out of their house ASAP, and then welcome the distance from her. If she's an a-hole to you, you have the bulletproof card of, I literally just did what the fire department said. I would not apologize again. I would just drop it and say you don't want to talk about it, but don't back down, if she wants to keep bringing it up.